The hall is quiet, too quiet. Not a word is spoken, and yet the air is dense with judgment. Faces that do not move, eyes that do not soften, gestures so small that they cut like verdicts. You feel the weight of it, though no one names it. This is not an ordinary room. It is a tribunal of silence. Here, no one tells you that you are being tested, but you are. Every glance. Machiavelli warned us long ago. Men judge more by what they see than by what they touch. And here, in this invisible courtroom, nothing is announced. Nothing is declared. The trial is not written on paper. It is carved in the air, in the way time stretches when nobody rescues you from the silence. You know the game has begun, not because someone attacks, but because no one moves. The silence itself becomes the signal. Perhaps you have been here before. At work, when you share your idea and no one responds. In love, when your partner says nothing, watching how you squirm in your own need for reassurance. In life, when the world stands still and you are left to wonder if your voice, your presence, your existence holds any weight. This silence is not neutral. It is a mirror. It asks, can you hold yourself without reaching for approval? Can you sit in the emptiness without rushing to fill it? The truth is, most cannot. The instinct is to defend, to explain, to cover the gap with nervous words, to beg the silence to end. But silence has its own hunger. It feeds on your restlessness. The more you try to escape it, the more it swallows you. That is why the true trial of power begins not with aggression, but with absence. With the invisible test of how you bear the unbearable. Machiavelli would tell you that strength is not loud. It is not in the sword raised or the voice raised higher. It is in the stillness that does not collapse. It is in the gaze that does not tremble. It is in the body that breathes evenly when every part of you wants to rush, to justify, to prove. Silence reveals whether you are master of yourself or prisoner of others' approval. This is the first truth of the silent tribunal. You are being judged long before you speak. You are being weighed in the pauses, in the empty spaces, in the subtle theater of restraint. And here, only those who can withstand the invisible trial without breaking are seen as worthy of authority. The game of power does not begin when someone attacks you. It begins when no one saves you. And the question is not whether you will face this silence. The question is, when it comes in, will you tremble? Or will you let the silence reveal that you were never the one on trial? You begin to speak. Your words flow, shaped with care, offered with the fragile hope of being received. Across from you, there is no reply, no nod, no sound, only a stillness that stretches longer than it should. The silence presses against your chest, and suddenly you feel as though every word you have spoken is floating in the air, naked, waiting to be judged. The absence of response becomes heavier than any argument. Could that silence is not empty. It is deliberate. It is a space carved out to expose what lies beneath your polished sentences. It is not your ideas that are on trial. It is your nervous system. The silence measures your need for recognition, the tremor in your breath, the way your hands betray your urgency. It is not a question of logic. It is a question of stability. Can you stand when the ground beneath you gives nothing back? Most cannot. Most rush to fill the void. They add more words, more explanations, more noising to make the unbearable gap close. Some laugh nervously, as if to soften the weight. Others lean forward, trying harder to be seen. But all of it reveals the same wound, the terror of being left suspended, unseen, unanswered. In that scramble to escape, they reveal more than they intend. Their insecurity writes itself in the air louder than any statement. Yet there is another way to let the silence stand, to breathe slowly, even as the seconds burn, to meet the gaze without forcing it, to feel the weight pressing in and still remain unmoved. This does not mean coldness. It means allowing the void to be and refusing to let it dictate who you are. The silence wants to break you, but if you can bear it, it becomes your ally. The shift is subtle, almost invisible. The silence that once threatened to swallow you now begins to work for you. Every second you endure becomes evidence, not of your words, but of your center, and slowly the roles reverse. The one who set the trap begins to feel its edge. Stillness unsettles them. Your refusal to rush leaves them exposed. They become the one restless, the one searching for a way out. Machiavelli understood this. Power is not only in speech, but in restraint. Survive the silence without bending is to prove that you are not desperate to be seen, not desperate to be approved. And in a world that feeds on desperation, that calm is more intimidating than any outburst of force. The trial of silence is the trial of presence. Those who fail reveal the fracture of their need. Those who endure show that nothing can unseat them. In the end, the silence does not humiliate you. Riat frowns. There are moments when words lose their meaning, and all that remains is the weight of a gaze, a look held too long, a silence that sharpens not in the air, but in the eyes that do not waver. It feels like light cutting through skin, searching not for what you say, but for what you cannot hide. The eyes become an X-ray, tracing the smallest flicker of hesitation, the smallest crack in your composure. This gaze is not casual. It is an examination, a quiet challenge. The longer it lingers, the louder your body responds. Heart quickens, the breath betrays you in its unevenness. Science would call it the survival response, the rise of cortisol, the tremor of an ancient instinct that whispers, "You are being hunted." Yet, this trial is not physical. It is symbolic. The hunt is for your stability, for the soft place where fear makes its home. Most people flinch. Some avert their eyes too quickly, as if burned by the intensity. Others attempt to disguise their unease with a nervous smile, a forced laugh, a gesture that breaks the rhythm of the moment. These are not mistakes of logic, but betrayals of the body. The gaze draws out the hidden hunger for escape, for relief, for the end of pressure. And in that instant, authority is surrendered. But there is another path: to let the gaze remain, without hardening, to meet it as one meets a horizon, calm, steady, unforced. Not a contest of strength, but a quiet recognition. The eyes can look, but they cannot define you. Machiavelli would say, "The calm face is the mask of true power." The secret is not in fighting the gaze, nor in fleeing it. It is in letting it pass through you without leaving a mark. Something changes when you hold steady. The one who watches begins to feel their own reflection. Their gaze, once a weapon, finds no wound to pierce. They search for weakness and encounter only stillness. They look for a crack and meet a surface that does not break. In that moment, the balance tilts. You are no longer the one observed. You become the one who observes them. Power is not loud. It is not in the force of your words or the speed of your reactions. It is in the quiet mastery of your own presence. The gaze that sought to measure you becomes trapped in its own effort, and the silence between eyes turns into a field where authority shifts. In the tribunal of power, the eyes of others are often the sharpest instruments. But if you can endure their weight without trembling, if you can allow their judgment to dissolve before it reaches your core, then their gaze ceases to be a weapon. It becomes a mere one that reflects not your fragility, but their inability to unsettle you. There are moments when time itself becomes a weapon. A meeting is set, a promise made, and yet the other arrives late. Not by accident, but by design. Each passing minute is more than mere waiting. It is a silent declaration of rank. The one who waits is placed below. The one who controls the rhythm claims the invisible throne. This is not about schedules. It is about hierarchy carved in silence. The trap is subtle. The delayed arrival whispers to your nerves. You are not important enough to be honored with punctuality. And most fall into it. Some react with visible irritation, tapping the table, checking their watch, allowing frustration to spill out. Others bend in the opposite direction, greeting the late arrival with excessive warmth, eager to show they are unaffected. Both reactions give the same message: you have power over me. But there is another response, one that shifts the ground entirely, to welcome the late arrival with serenity, not sarcasm. To let the time stretch without becoming restless. To carry yourself as though the room itself belongs to you, as though the minutes that passed were not stolen, but offered to your own stillness. In this stance, it is no longer you who is waiting. It is they who return to a stage already set, a rhythm already flowing, a presence already established. This reversal is quiet but decisive. The one who entered expecting dominance finds instead a calm they cannot shake. They imagined you would be unsettled, eager to resume the agenda, as though balance had been disturbed. But the balance was never theirs to control. In your composure, time bends back into your hands. The delay loses its sharpness, and what was meant to diminish you now exposes their own need to provoke. Machiavelli knew this truth. The power to command does not lie in aggression, but in perception. When you act as if your time is unassailable, you strip the late arrival of their intended superiority. The ritual of waiting collapses because you never accepted the role of the one diminished. And in that refusal, authority shifts quietly toward you. In the hidden court of power, delays are never innocent. They are tests dressed as accidents. It is about whether you let another dictate the tempo of your being. If you can remain unshaken, if you can carry time as though it were always yours, then no one can place you beneath them. The throne of presence remains with you. No matter who walks in late, it comes dressed as humor. A light remark, a playful tone, a smile that hides something sharper beneath. On the surface, it is only a joke. But inside the words, there is a blade. The comment lands not to amuse, but to pierce, to test the boundaries of your dignity without seeming hostile. The provocation is disarmed by laughter, yet it is never innocent. It is a quiet experiment to see how much of yourself you are willing to give away. The trap lies in its disguise. If you laugh along too quickly, you surrender ground, signaling that your worth can be made smaller for the comfort of the room. If you flare with anger, you show the wound has been touched, and the hidden power of the other is confirmed. Both laughter and fury reveal what the silence was designed to uncover. Where you are fragile, where you bend too easily, most take one of these paths. They defend themselves through wit, trying to outjoke the joke, or they swallow the sting with a forced smile, hoping the moment will pass unnoticed. Yet, neither path holds strength. Both give the initiator what they sought, the knowledge of where your armor cracks. The crowd, even if silent, senses it too. In the theater of human presence, nothing is more visible than insecurity disguised as laughter. But there is another way. To hold the comment in stillness, to let your eyes settle, not with rage, but with a weight that makes clear the boundary is seen. To allow a pause to stretch just long enough for the words to lose their false humor. And then, with calm precision, to respond briefly, not to defend, not to retaliate, but to close the door they attempted to open. It is not more words that protect you, but fewer. The restraint itself becomes the shield. In that moment, the provocation weakens. What was meant to entertain at your expense now returns to the one who delivered it. Their attempt at control dissolves because you did not feed it with either compliance or resistance. The audience, visible or not, perceives something different. The one who tried to command laughter is no longer the center. You are, and your silence, your measured presence, dictates the tone of the room. Machiavelli would recognize this reversal. Power is not always won through conquest. Sometimes it is preserved through refusal to be baited, refusal to let others define the borders of your dignity. The provocation is an invitation to step into a role beneath yourself. Decline. The role and the stage belongs to you. In the silent trial of power, even the smallest joke is a question. The answer is not given by wit or by anger, but by the steadiness of a presence that cannot be mocked into submission. In that steadiness, authority is not declared. It simply becomes undeniable. There are times when it is not a single person who tests you, but many. A circle of eyes turning toward you, waiting for your response, demanding that you prove your worth under the weight of their collective gaze. In these moments, the silence is not empty, it is filled with expectation. Every glance tightens around you like an invisible rope, pulling you toward the need to defend, to justify, to speak faster than your breath can carry. This is the nature of group pressure. It is less about the truth of what is being said, and more about the unspoken demand. Show us your weakness so we may confirm our strength together. The group seeks not clarity, but fracture. And the one who fractures first becomes the sacrifice, marked as prey in the subtle economy of human power. Most surrender too quickly. Words tumble out at a speed that betrays fear. Sentences lose their shape as urgency pushes them forward. Explanations multiply, but each one only reveals the desperation to be understood, to be validated, to be spared. And the more one justifies, the smaller one appears. The group, sensing blood, leans in closer, their silence sharpening with each word wasted. But power here does not belong to the one who speaks the most. It belongs to the one who waits. To pause, to breathe, to let the weight of many eyes settle. Without scrambling for relief, this is the hidden authority. When you speak less than expected, when your words are measured with surgical precision rather than scattered in haste, the silence shifts. The pressure loses its grip. Nietzsche once wrote that he who possesses the ability to pause possesses command. In the tribunal of the group, it is the pause that rewrites the script. The collective gaze, which sought to devour, now finds itself suspended. The crowd realizes it cannot force you into the role of the hunted of the room. You are no longer the one surrounded, you are the center that others orbit. This reversal is rarely dramatic. It is subtle, almost invisible, but unmistakable. The group that once demanded your proof now feels the discomfort of its own exposure. The silence that was designed to corner you becomes a silence they cannot bear. And in that fragile turning, you become something more than a participant in their game. You become the axis around which the game revolves. In the trial of many against one, the temptation is always to fill the air with words. But the truth is simpler. The less you yield to the pressure, the less power the group holds. To remain intact, to hold the pause, to let each word fall like stone rather than dust. This is how authority emerges. Not declared, not defended, but recognized in the stillness that refuses to break. Sometimes power does not arrive as confrontation. It arrives as delay, a message unanswered, a decision postponed, a promise stretched into silence. You wait, and the waiting itself becomes the test. Not of logistics, not of schedules, but of your ability to remain whole when control is withheld from you. The pause, drawn out and deliberate, whispers its hidden question: how much of yourself will you spend to force a reply? This is not an innocent postponement. To keep you waiting is to see whether you will press harder, reveal your desperation, or abandon the pursuit altogether. Both impatience and resignation expose the same fracture, the fear of being disregarded. The silence of delay is not passive, it measures the depth of your need. Most react with urgency. They send another message, raise their voice, lean forward to demand clarity. Their insistence betrays the hidden wound, the fear that without the other's answer, they themselves dissolve. Others retreat too quickly, stepping back with quiet resentment, as though to prove they no longer care. But beneath the surface, the same truth echoes. They are ruled by the timing of someone else. There is another way to let the waiting breathe, to acknowledge the delay, yet not surrender to it, to carry yourself as though other doors remain open, other paths remain possible. This is not indifference. It is presence without dependency. It is the calm stance of one who can endure uncertainty without collapsing into need. In this patience, the balance shifts. The one who delayed expects you to chase, to strain, to circle around them. But when you remain steady, when you reveal no hunger for their return, the test begins to turn back upon them. The silence they created now becomes their own discomfort. You are no longer the one waiting. They are. Kierkegaard once spoke of despair as the sickness of not being able to rest in oneself. Patience, then, is not weakness. It is the transformation of despair into quiet faith. To wait without breaking is to declare, without words, that your essence is not at the mercy of another's timing. The trial of patience is not about the clock. It is about who owns the rhythm of your being. If you allow delay to define you, then time itself becomes a chain. But if you can sit within the waiting, unbroken, then even in silence, you remain free. The one who cannot be rushed, cannot be ruled. It arrives softly, dressed in admiration, yet carrying doubt inside its folds. You are good, but perhaps not ready for more. The words slide into the air with a smile, half praise, half question, leaving you suspended in an invisible balance. On the surface, it appears as recognition. Beneath, it is a seed of insecurity, carefully planted to see whether you will water it with your own need. The trap is not in the compliment itself, but in its incompleteness. It offers you a taste, then withholds the rest. And that withholding is where the power lies. Many, when faced with such poisoned sweetness, rush to fill the gap, proving themselves, defending their worth, asking for reassurance, pressing for validation. In that very urgency, they confess what was never spoken, that their self-belief is fragile, and the approval of others holds more weight than their own center. This is how power shifts, not through open criticism, but through suggestion, by dangling recognition just out of reach. The other tests whether you will abandon your ground in pursuit of it, and most do. They talk too much, justify too quickly, bend to visibly hoping to capture what was never fully given. The half compliment becomes a leash tightening with every word of self-defense. But there is another path. To hear the statement, to let it linger, and to let a quiet smile emerge, not of arrogance, but of steadiness. To accept neither the gift nor the wound. To walk past the bait without pause. This is not indifference. It is clarity. It is the calm refusal to let another define the scale of your readiness, your value, your place. When you do this, something shifts. The insecurity they tried to place within you does not take root. Instead, it reflects back upon them. They become the one unsettled, wondering why their subtle hook found no purchase. Their strategy dissolves because you revealed that you are not hungry for their validation. And in that moment, authority becomes yours, not through force, but through absence of need. Machiavelli understood this quiet inversion. True strength is not in seeking praise, but in standing without it. The leader who needs applause is ruled by those who grant it. The one who can walk forward without approval commands a different gravity, because nothing can be taken from them. The trial of the poisoned compliment is not about the words spoken. It is about whether you betray yourself in the space they leave open. Those who grasp for reassurance are captured. Those who smile and move on are untouchable. And in the silence that follows, it becomes clear. Power belongs not to the one who offers recognition, but to the one who no longer needs it. The silent trial is never announced. It is not written in laws, nor spoken aloud, yet it governs every encounter. The courtroom of human presence is built not of stone, but of pauses, glances, delays, and words left unsaid. To live among others is to stand continually before this invisible tribunal. Every silence is a question. Every gesture is a test. Machiavelli named it vertec, the capacity to remain whole in the midst of chaos. This is not brute force. It is not domination by volume or display. It is the quiet strength of one who does not tremble when the silence grows heavy, who does not shrink under the gaze, who does not bow when time is withheld, or when recognition is dangled just out of reach. The truth is that you will be tested, not once, not occasionally, but endlessly. In boardrooms, in bedrooms, in friendships and rivalries. In the countless unspoken negotiations that shape every bond, the trial repeats itself. Rarely will anyone admit it. Rarely will anyone say, "I am measuring you now," and yet they are. Every pause, with every silence, with every absence, the measure is taken. The instinct is to resist these moments, to fight against them, to demand clarity, or to grasp at certainty. But the paradox of power is that clarity does not come from force. It comes from stillness. Authority is not seized in these trials, it is revealed. It emerges when you do not rush, when you do not bend, when you refuse to let another dictate the tempo of your presence. To pass through the tribunal is not to conquer others. It is to master yourself. It is to find the quiet place within that does not need applause, that does not collapse when unseen, that does not dissolve when silence surrounds. In that steadiness, the tests lose their edge. They become less about surviving others and more about seeing clearly. The one who cannot be shaken, cannot be ruled. So the question is never whether you will face the trial. You already do, every day, in ways so subtle they pass unnoticed. The real question is whether, when the eyes fix on you, when the silence stretches, when the approval is withheld, you will tremble, or you will stand. And in that standing, in that quiet refusal to break, something undeniable takes form. Authority is no longer borrowed. It is no longer requested. It becomes your presence itself. The silent tribunal will always open its doors. And when it does, let it be known, you are not the one on trial. If these words have resonated with you, you have felt yourself inside these silent trials, measured not by what you said, but by how you endured, then you know this is more than a lesson about power. It is a mirror. It is a way of seeing yourself in the moments when no one explains the rules. Yet everyone is watching. This space was created for those who live with that quiet weight. For those who sense the hidden dynamics beneath every pause, every gaze, every unspoken test. If you carry the questions of identity, of strength, of presence, and if you want to keep exploring them through philosophy, psychology, and the invisible language of silence, then stay close to this channel. Here, you will not find easy answers or empty promises. You will find depth. You will find words that echo your own unspoken struggles. You will find the courage to sit with yourself in the moments when others would rush away. So, if this path speaks to you, let it continue. Subscribe, so that the next time we gather in this invisible tribunal, you will already be here, ready to walk deeper. Share this with those who understand the weight of silence, those who are searching, as you are, for a truth not spoken but lived. And let your presence grow with each step, each breath, each pause, because, in the end, this journey is not about following. It is about remembering that within you, there is a steadiness that cannot be shaken. And together, we will keep uncovering it one silence at a time.